I'm here with Dave Durante. I've done some research. From what I've gathered, you have a double citizenship.
Yes, that's right.
You're American and Italian.
That's correct.
You're 38 years old. You have been really busy in those 38 years, apparently. You went to Stanford. You graduated with a human biology major.
That's right.
And psychology minor. Then you went to the US national gymnastics team, went to Beijing. Then you went on the CrossFit gymnastics staff. And apparently you worked with Adidas.
Yeah.
You still work.
That's right. No, not anymore.
Okay.
Yes.
And now you're running Power Monkey Fitness seminars.
That's right. That's right. Wow, you know more about myself than I do.
Now, let's start at the very beginning. So, basically, where were you born and how did you come to this point right now? Just a brief overview about your life.
So I grew up in New Jersey, just outside of New York City, about 10 miles away from the city. And started gymnastics when I was 6 years old. And was a very active kid. Played a lot of different sports growing up. My family, a bunch of soccer players coming from an Italian background. Soccer was a big sport in our family, but I played a ton of different sports, and we were very fortunate that there was a very good gymnastics gym down the block from my house where I was growing up, and they especially had a good boys program, which is rare. And I was jumping on furniture in my house, and my mom didn't want me breaking her couch, so she thought the gym was a good setting for me. And I kind of grew from there. I loved it. The other sports kind of faded away. Gymnastics is the one that stuck. It led me to a scholarship at Stanford. I was fortunate enough to compete for that team for 4 years. I helped coach the team for a number of years while I trained for Team USA before moving to the Olympic Training Center. After my competitive career, I moved back to Stanford and helped coach the team to a national championship in 2009. And then I moved to Italy, and I lived in Italy for 2 years. And during that time, I slowly started to get involved with CrossFit on my own. A buddy of mine had a box gym in his garage, and I kind of grew to really appreciate and love what the CrossFit community was doing, and it snowballed into bigger things with CrossFit headquarters and then CrossFit Gymnastics, and then slowly became Power Monkey as we got further along. So it's been quite a journey, a lot of different kind of twists and turns, but gymnastics has been kind of the thing that's been at the core the entire time.
I thought of you as really an all-American, but now apparently you have strong ties to Italy.
Very strong.
Do you have family there?
Yeah, most of my family lives there.
Okay, where?
In Rome.
Cool.
My parents are from a little village about 3 hours southeast of Rome, in Molise. But my dad grew up in Rome, and my family, the family that still live there, all lives in Rome. So Rome is where we go back to when I'm home, or to my parents' village. But I lived a year in Rome, and then I lived a year in Venice, Italy, too. I did a project for the Venice Biennale, which is a contemporary art festival there. How I met my wife, we were performing on sculptures. We were doing gymnastics routines on sculptures in Venice for a year, which is amazing. So, and no matter what I do, I do a lot of stuff in the art world as well on my own. And so being a part of the Biennale and incorporating gymnastics was a very cool experience.
So take us back to the Beijing Olympics in 2008.
Sure.
Can you tell us a little bit how the preparation was like for that competition?
Yeah, sure. So my experience with the Olympics was kind of unique. I was the alternate for the team, but I was in a very unique type of alternate.
What does that mean, alternate?
The reserve for the squad. But that's a long story. It's something that will probably take a full podcast just to talk about that whole thing. But the preparation is pretty intense. You know, there's a lot that goes into it. When you live at the Olympic Training Center, your whole day revolves around training. And you're a professional athlete at that point. So you wake up in the morning, you have breakfast, you go to the doctors and trainers, and they get you prepared for your first workout. We work out for 3-4 hours. Then we have a break in the middle of the day. We get some lunch. We take a nap. We come back, another 3-4 hours of training. Then we go to rehab. We go see more doctors. We go see sports psychologists. We go to sports science. We do rehab with cold plunges, massages, steam rooms, saunas, whatever else we might need for preparation for the end of the day, but also preparation for the next day. And that's rinse and repeat. And we do the same thing for years. Leading up to the Olympics, obviously there's a huge mental component to that too. We have a few competitions that are kind of our qualification. We have a national championship, we have an Olympic trials, and we have an Olympic team camp, and then we go to Beijing. So it was a 3-step process to eventually head to Beijing with the Olympic squad, which was 9 guys that they took to, 9 guys that were on that squad, and we ended up taking 8 to Beijing.
What did you do specifically in training? So when you get up in the morning, what kind of routines of exercises are you working on? Is it like always your routine that you're going to perform, or is it a lot of accessory work? What does it look like?
It really depends on the time of season. I would say, we have an off season, we have a pre-season, we have a pre-comp season, and then we have a comp season. So we look at it as kind of a year in a 4-phase process. And our coaches would kind of create a week-by-week summary of what they want us to do on any particular week. But to give you a better indication of what we'd be doing on any particular day, would really be dictated according to what type of cycle we were in and where we were training. So it's different when you're in competition versus when you're out of competition, when you're in season versus you're out of season. So it's always a little bit different depending on what type of, when we were in season.
I've watched a couple of videos, I think it was of the trials, Olympic trials.
Yeah.
There you had your shoulder taped.
Yeah.
And apparently popped out or something.
Yeah, so injuries are very prevalent in the gymnastics world. I would say anywhere at the high level, elite sport world, you're going to have a lot of injuries. But Olympic trials is 2 days of competition, and on the first day of competition, my last routine on vault, my shoulder subluxed. So the shoulder joint popped out and popped back in. And so I had to have it taped down to make sure that it stayed secure. Mm-hmm. So in the routines that I did the second day of Olympic trials, it was to make sure that my shoulder didn't pop out again. So it was a preventative measure to make sure that it didn't get any worse.
Did that affect your performance physically? So did it affect it physically?
Well, is it painful? Sure. Yeah, okay. It's painful. But at that point, pain doesn't matter. You train your whole life for one moment, and if you let pain take over, especially if it's pain that you can work through, then I would never be able to live with myself. I wouldn't be able to live. So you put the pain aside for the one day, and you push through, and you do what you're trained to do. And that's what I did. I said, yes, it's painful, but this is more important than the pain, and I competed, and I did very well that day. That was the best meet I've ever had in my life.
So you basically fought the pain with belief and with your will.
Without a doubt, right? Without a doubt. Yeah, absolutely. The success and the time and effort that I'd put up into that point, 25 years plus of training up to that point, mattered more to me than the pain that I knew was going to be only for a short period of time.
So you're happy with the event as it went?
Well, the first day I made mistakes. The second day was a fantastic meet. I had a very good meet on the second day of competition. First day I wasn't happy with, but second day, yes.
The thing that you mentioned, that you pushed through the pain, can you teach that to somebody?
It's difficult. It's difficult. And actually, I wouldn't really recommend it in a lot of cases. Sometimes you have to be really smart with your body. That was a very specific scenario. I think I had a tendency, I could deal with pain pretty well. So I would sometimes push through when I shouldn't. But at that point, that was potentially the last meet of my career. So it was either push through and finish on a note where I had no regrets, or finish up and say, I could have left more out there, and I would never have been able to live with myself otherwise. So really, it's a case-dependent situation as to whether or not I would recommend pushing through pain. Most of the time, I would say no. But in that particular situation, because of the circumstances, in particular, that leading up to your lifetime goal, and knowing that it wasn't going to be an injury that was going to create any long-term effects or create anything worse, the doctors cleared me to compete. So they said, you can go ahead and do this. You're fine to go ahead and do it. And it was just a pain tolerance issue at that point. So that's it.
And then after the Beijing Olympics, you stopped?
I retired. Yep.
Why?
I was planning on retiring. I was the old man on the team. They would all call me the old man. They all made fun of me for how old I was. I mean, in the gymnastics world, I was kind of old.
How old?
I was 28 years old, which in artistic gymnastics is towards the end of most people's careers. And so I was ready to start the next phase of my life. The injury, I had blown out my knees 3 times. I had the shoulder problem. I just wanted to have relationships. I was the kind of athlete that put everything into my training. So things like having a girlfriend and visiting my family and seeing other things in the world were all put on the back burner. and it was all about training. Like I overdid it. I had a tendency to focus so much that it really prevented me from having healthy relationships outside of the gym. But something I wouldn't recommend other people doing. But that was just my interpretation of what it took to be an elite athlete. So when I was 28, I said, I have no regrets in the sport. I did everything I wanted to do. I left on my terms, which is rare. I left relatively healthy compared to other guys. And now it's a chance for me to start the next chapter of my life.
Which was coaching at Stanford, right?
Well, not necessarily. I didn't want to do I didn't want to have anything to do with gymnastics. That's why I moved to Italy. I went to Stanford because I blew my knee out and I had ACL surgery right after Beijing. I came back home and I had surgery at the training center and then moved to Stanford. And I took that year to kind of figure out what I wanted to do next. And I hadn't won a national championship when I was on the team at Stanford. So I wanted to try to win one before I finished my coaching career. And the team was very good at Stanford that year, and I thought I could help the team. They finished second the previous year. I thought I could help them get over the hump, and we did win. And I was able to get my NCAA championship ring, and that was one of those check boxes that I was able to do in my career. I'm very close to the Stanford community. I feel very, very lucky to have been a part of that team and to be able to give back to Stanford with a national championship. And then when I was done, I said I'm going to move to Italy, and I wanted to get into the wine business. I really love the whole thing that goes into wine. I look at it like another art form, the way that I look at gymnastics as an art form. So I like drinking wine. I like the process of making wine. It fascinated me. So I wanted to move to Italy to kind of get into that. And unfortunately, I fell again skiing in Austria. And my first time ever skiing, and I blew my knee out again. And instead of going to work on an internship that I had in place at a winery, I had to have surgery in Rome and rehab in Rome. And while I was rehabbing, I started working at another gymnastics gym in Rome, and that led me back into coaching again. So an injury led me back into gymnastics.
Mm. And from there, you mentioned that you worked out in a garage gym?
Yeah. So, well, I was working I was doing more CrossFit workouts on my own at that point. Mm-hmm. I was going on main site and looking at websites and finding out. This actually started when I was still at Stanford. I was following CrossFit.com, but doing workouts on my own and just kind of like doing them by myself, and then following the same thing at just a regular fitness gym in Rome. And then eventually that built into me finding a garage gym at my buddy's house when I moved back to the States in New Jersey. He opened up a CrossFit gym in his garage, and I started doing it with him before he opened up his bigger space.
Why would a gymnast start training CrossFit? What did fascinate you about it?
Well, one, I wanted to continue doing some gymnastics movements. Two, I wanted to be able to do workouts that were relatively quick. I didn't want to spend 6 hours in the gym anymore. I wanted to be able to get fit. I wanted to work on areas that I had neglected my entire life. My legs were very, very weak relative to my upper body. I wanted to become more proportional, more of an all-around athlete as opposed to just specific to gymnastics. And when I found CrossFit, I was like, wow, this incorporates gymnastics and all these other things that I want to be doing. I was like, this is kind of a perfect mix. And I like the mentality of it. I think Coach Glassman, coming from a gymnastics background, the fact that he incorporates gymnastics into his empire was fascinating to me. I was like, wow, this is an opportunity to get more people involved in gymnastics. And to me, it was a natural fit. So I just thought it was an amazing opportunity to do gymnastics, but in a new way, and to expose new people to it. So I was grateful that, Coach Glassman brought CrossFit to the masses.
And then did they ask you to coach for them, or did you go to CrossFit?
Actually, we had a conversation with Dave Castro, because at that time gymnastics information was still very limited, and we reached out to Castro and told him, that we were interested in kind of like helping out if anything was needed.
Who is we from Stanford? Or
no,
just
me and
yourself?
My partner from Power Monkey.
Okay.
So me and my partner from Power Monkey. At that point, we had started Power Monkey, and we were kind of very early on. And my partner with Power Monkey, Shane Garrity, he was a gymnast, and then he got into stunts, and he's a performer in New York, and also does a lot in the stunt world for Hollywood and TV shows. So me and him were trying to get more involved and make our expertise available to the CrossFit world. And so we reached out. We just sent an email to Castro and said, hey, we want to help. And he wrote back and said, why don't you come out to Santa Cruz and shoot some videos for us? So it's right by Stanford. So for me, going to Santa Cruz was kind of a natural fit. We actually did one video. The first video I did was as Alessandra Pacelli at Stanford. And if you go to the old CrossFit videos, I'm teaching her handstands in the Stanford gym where I trained. So we were able to do the first video at Stanford, and then we did another one at CrossFit HQ, I think with Dan Bailey, and then I came back again and did one with Chris Spieler, and then we did another one with Dan Bailey, and we did a bunch. We ended up doing a ton of different videos with different athletes. They felt it to be, somewhat interesting and valuable to be able to have someone from the elite gymnastics world and now interested in CrossFit kind of help build those two worlds.
And those were just demo videos, so you taught them how to do a correct handstand push-up.
Yeah, exactly, that kind of stuff. Demo videos, like let's see what you're doing and let's work on planche or muscle up or bar muscle up, whatever it might be. They were demo videos.
And that was about 2013?
Right around that time. I would say probably around 2012, maybe, maybe even before then. I can't remember the actual dates. It was actually before 2013. Yeah, maybe 2011.
And then that relationship evolved, and at the end you basically wrote the
Well, I
CrossFit.
became part of CrossFit Gymnastics staff,
Yeah.
and I was on that staff for 2 years. And during that time, we were doing a level 2 course, an advanced course that I helped rewrite. So there had been one in place that they had done for a while, and then they stopped doing. And then I rewrote the level 2 course, the advanced course, and was teaching that for about a year. Before I stopped doing CrossFit Gymnastics and moved solely to Power Monkey.
Why did you move from CrossFit?
Well, I still have a very good relationship with CrossFit headquarters, Dave Castro. We try to have a very good relationship with them. I think we just moved on from CrossFit Gymnastics because we want to do some more things with Power Monkey, and with not running that organization, I was kind of stuck in terms of what I was capable of doing as an athlete and as a coach. So being able to run my own seminar and create my own content through Power Monkey, it allowed me to kind of create more in line with how I wanted to see the teaching techniques go.
So tell us a little bit about Power Monkey Fitness. What's the goal of the company? What do you like about it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. It's an education company. We are an education company that takes a few different avenues, and our motto is basically technique matters. Technique matters whenever you're working on whatever it might be. Gymnastics, movement, weightlifting, kettlebell training, rowing, endurance training. We started with gymnastics because that was our initial background. And actually, taking a step back a little bit, Power Monkey was an existing company. It was a mom and pop shop that used to make rigs and physical equipment. And they were based out in Florida. And me and my partner had an idea for our ring thing, which is our ring training device. And we shopped it around to a bunch of different equipment manufacturers, and Power Monkey was the one that picked it up. And we started making ring things with them. And then over time, they liked our ideas, and they brought us on as partners. And then after about a year, we bought them out and took on the company solely with just us. And we moved the company from making equipment more to an education company. So the educational component takes 3 different avenues. One is education through events. So events like our Power Monkey clinics and our intensive, and what most people know us for is our camp, our week-long Power Monkey camp that we host 2 times a year, once in the fall and once in the spring in Tennessee. It's a week-long, adult-only fitness camp. It's awesome. It's a blast. I would highly recommend your listeners checking out Power Monkey Camp. If you're interested in fitness and this community, it's one of the best events that you'll ever attend. It's awesome. Then we do our clinics, like I mentioned. The secondary component is our equipment side. So we do make the ring thing. We had some other pieces of equipment, parallel bars, and some other stuff that we're not making right now. But we do some things with the ring thing. We've created a certification and a ring thing class that we just partnered up with Crunch, which is a global gym in the US. And we are now teaching certifications for the ring thing for group training. And so we created a TRX class specifically for the ring thing. So our goal with everything that we do with Power Monkey is to bring gymnastics to the masses. Bring gymnastics technique to more people around the world, especially people that didn't grow up with it. So through our equipment, through the ring thing certification class, through our events, and thirdly through our online education, online programming, and through our app. We have an app called Monkey Method, and our online Monkey Method, it's programming. So we have our third phase, which is follow our programs to be able to get the technique in place in terms of how to incorporate it into your daily training. So those are the 3 prongs: events, education through programming, and our equipment.
We own a box ourselves, and I find it really interesting. How do you split the time and the effort between those 3 avenues, and what's the return? So say, is it mostly that the money comes from equipment, but you invest most time in programming?
Right.
How does that look like?
Yeah, I guess that's a really good question. I think it's something that we've continuously played with and toyed with. And the reality is, you asked me my background. My background is in science, in human biology and sports science. I was going to go to medical school and physical therapy school. And so business is something completely new to me. So I'm learning as I'm going. I'm basically getting an MBA on the fly. We've made a lot of mistakes that we wish we wouldn't have going along this Power Monkey journey, but we've done some good things as well, and it's allowed us to stay afloat. But where the money is generated from kind of comes from different areas. I look at the ring thing up to this point as a promotional device. I don't look at it as kind of like a sustainable device in terms of what a company can hold its hat on. It's been a great tool, and I think it is a great tool, and the certification program is a new prong that can be a good revenue generator for long term. But the programming is definitely something we look at as a long-term revenue generator, being able to create programs that are very unique. One of the things that's very unique to our app, and I know that the app space is very saturated. Everyone's throwing programs around and this, follow this for this. Our app, we've spent a lot of time on with a developer over almost 2 years now, creating something that creates semi-individualized training plans. So essentially what that means is, if you go to our app and you click on one of the programs, learn a muscle up, learn a pull up, learn a press to handstand, the programs are all different according to what assessment numbers you put in. So it's not one plan for everyone. So if you're lacking in certain strength aspects according to the assessment, or lacking in some mobility aspects, there are deficiency exercises built into the program that create a semi-unique program that's going to help you with your limitations. So we've created a program that allows for it to be more geared towards people's individual weaknesses, strengths and weaknesses, which is slightly different and more unique than a general training plan that might be out there for just one plan. Here's a daily WOD, go ahead and do it. So we've created something that's very unique for each individual. And there are our events. Right now is probably our biggest revenue generator. It's our most consistent. Our camps, we just ran our 10th Power Monkey camp this past October, and we've been doing it for 5 years now. It's the one that allows us to do a lot of other things because it generates probably the most revenue for us on a regular basis. But in terms of sustainability, that's capped. There's only so much that those can make, and they are very labor intensive. While it's only 2 weeks a year, it's a full-time job to be able to keep those up. So we have some people in place that take care of sponsorships, that take care of, maintenance of the equipment, all of those details. But we have a staff of about 7-8 people right now that are with us on a regular basis. And then I have another staff of about 25 coaches and another staff of 10 that help with putting on the events with me. So the extended staff is quite large. Our immediate staff is about 7 to 8 people that all have different tools and making sure that all of the different prongs run accordingly.
Which of the avenues is the most satisfying for you?
That's a good question. Probably camp right now, because it's the most, it's the satisfaction that I can touch. Working with campers on a full week and seeing how much they get out of the week is incredible. And we get people from all over the world. We get all over Europe, all over South America, Australia, from Russia, from India, from all over the world coming to train with us in an environment where you're eating, you're in the same cabins, you're training, you're doing everything in and out of the gym with these same people. By the time Friday rolls around of that week, you've bonded in a way that you're not able to get from just training with someone on, an hour a day. So being able to see how far camp has come, we built camp to try to make it into an educational component, and it's turned into so much more than that, more of just an experience. To me, that's the one that I can feel the satisfaction the most, because it's human interactions at the highest level. It gives me the ability to work with people all around the world from all different age levels, all different skill levels, and we bond in a way that is very rare, and it creates lifelong friendships in a really short period of time. So for me, the one that has allowed to feel the most satisfaction because of that human component is camp.
Right now we're at the seminar in Switzerland. I guess you have other seminars at the weekend in Europe right now?
Yes.
So how does the road life look like for you, and is it hard to maintain, for example, with a family?
Yeah, it's very difficult. My wife is actually part of Power Monkey Company. She was a circus performer and dancer, and then got into gymnastics. She actually was on CrossFit Gymnastics staff with me too for 2 years, and she was my assistant. We would travel around the world together, which was great. Now I have a little 2-year-old daughter that she's 2 years old. She's been on 30 flights already. She's been all around the world with us. She travels a ton with us, but it's unrealistic to think that that's going to be able to continue. Plus, I don't get to go all the trips together. They're not here with me on this trip, and I'm gone for 4 weeks, and it's incredibly difficult. That's the hardest part, is being away from them. So I look at it as a necessary evil to be able to grow the company to the point where I don't need to travel as much into the future. I'm trying to grow my staff and bring in great people to be able to learn our methods, to be able to eventually get to the point where I can send other coaches. And one of the things that we really try to do that's unique is we try to bring in athletes who are all very high-level athletes that have transitioned into coaching. So we're looking at athletes from all over the world that were great athletes in their own individual sport and have transitioned into becoming very, very good coaches as well, to be able to take over, so that I'm building what I'm hoping other people will take over into the future.
Can you talk a little bit about the hiring process? So, for example, Mike, how did you get to know Mike?
Yeah, so one, like I said, we'd like to bring on people, especially people that we hire for coaching roles, that were high-level athletes that have become very good coaches. Because a couple of things that are unique there. One, being a high-level athlete does not mean you're a good coach at all. In fact, most high-level athletes that are very talented don't become good coaches because things come naturally to them, so they don't really have the ability to dissect movement and to be able to kind of relay exactly what it takes to learn something new. I was not super talented, so I had to learn things very slowly. My learning process was, when I was living at the training center and was working with these supremely talented athletes, my learning process was little baby steps versus their leaps and bounds. So it was very frustrating for someone like me, but I always understood that that's how I learned. So I try to look for people that were great athletes but transitioned to coaching, and I know that they're good coaching through the things that they've done in the past. Mike had a really good following prior to becoming part of Power Monkey. Chad Vaughn, who is one of our most important coaches and started with me from the beginning with Power Monkey, 2-time Olympian, and is one of the best coaches that we have on staff. All of these guys, Chris Hinshaw on our endurance team, and Jeff Martone on our kettlebell team, and Rika Geiser, who is an Olympian, 2-time games competitor, all of our staff were high-level athletes and transitioned to coaching. So one of the things I look for right away is coaching, but athlete pedigree as well, to be able to make sure it's both worlds. Because I think if you get a coach that was a high-level athlete, you get something unique. You get a perspective that you don't get from a coach that didn't have that athletic background. So I think you get a perspective from an athlete perspective that doesn't necessarily come to be from someone that only was a coach. I think you can have amazing coaches, and I had some in my career that were amazing coaches but not great athletes. And then I got to the highest level with my last coach, who was on the Soviet team, and he was one of the best athletes in the world and an amazing coach, and it was very unique, very, very unique. He's the best coach I ever had. He was the one that kind of allowed me to understand what it took to become a really great coach, and I have a long way to go to become a great coach, but it's a learning process. It's something that I'm constantly striving now to become a better and better coach, taking tools from the people around me that will allow me to become better.
Apparently your last coach taught you how to behave.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he wasn't the one that taught me how to behave. He actually taught me how to, yes, he was actually important in that process. My college coach was also very, very important in like taming me, basically, like making sure that I was getting something positive. What I mentioned yesterday as part of the seminar, limiting frustration, right? I was an angry gymnast when I was younger. And he taught me how to, say, okay, you're here for this period of time. The more positive energy you can give during this period of time, the more you're going to get out of it. And I was never under that mentality growing up. I thought that if I was like an angry gymnast, that it showed that I wanted to be successful at a higher level, but it limited my ability to really get the most out of every day in training. Some days were great, some days were terrible, But what he taught me was that even on terrible days, there's something positive you can get out of it. And even if it's something tiny, something infinitesimally small, that turns into something bigger. It snowballs into something bigger and bigger and bigger over time if you can capitalize on that infinitesimal positive experience. So it's something that I didn't have early on that I think I wish I would have known earlier in my career.
You said that you're working on your handstand hold for I guess your goal is 10 minutes?
Yeah, my goal is to try to get to 10 minutes freestanding, no walking. Yep.
Do you have any other goals?
One-arm handstands. One-arm handstands are something I've been working on quite a bit. In fact, it's been helping with my longer holds, but there are a couple of people in the handstand world that I look up to that are incredible with handstands that I strive to become better at. My handstands are good, but they can become much better. And so my goals right now are to become more overall fit and get my legs to be stronger, like I mentioned. I'm still very pathetic in terms of upper body, lower half kind of balance.
Just as a reference, can you tell us some numbers?
What's
your back squat and what's your freestanding strict handstand push-ups?
Oh my God, yeah, I mean, it's embarrassing to be honest with you. I don't even, my back squat right now is probably my max all time was 255, maybe 260.
And that's pounds.
Pounds? Yeah, pounds. It's not get crazy with kilos, oh my God. Yeah, pounds, and my max bench press is right around that same amount.
Yeah.
And for years, my bench press was more than my back squat. And for the gymnastics world, we rarely do anything, below parallel with lifting. We don't do any Olympic lifting, and we're trying to change that. We're trying to incorporate more Olympic weightlifting into the gymnastics world to show that it can be valuable in terms of its application to a healthier and more well-balanced athlete if it's done correctly and it's incorporated correctly. But it was new to me, working on Olympic lifts was new, working with Mike and Chad for the first time. So, those things are definitely goals of mine to become more well-balanced, to stay healthy, to keep my shoulders strong, and to be able to stay healthy with the things that I'm trying to do from a gymnastics perspective. But most of the gymnastics goals that I have revolve around handstands.
And outside of sport, what's your goal there?
To make Power Monkey into sustainable business. To be a great father and a great husband, to have a great family, which I do. I'm very, very lucky. My wife is incredible. I don't know how I lucked out to have somebody as great as Sadie. She's better than I ever could have imagined in terms of dealing with me and balancing me out. And she is my yin to, the yin to my yang kind of a type of situation. But in terms of business goals and outside goals, it's to create Power Monkey to be a company that grows and continues to build technique for people for a variety of different sports. And gymnastics is kind of objective number one, where we want people to become better movers and understand that gymnastics can be an incredible initial tool for whatever you go on to do. Whether that's to become a gymnast, great. If it's to become a better lifter or rower or baseball player or soccer player, gymnastics can be a foundation for all of that. We want people to become better movers through better technique. And I want Power Monkey to become an international resource for good movement. So my goal is to create sustainability, to create a company that can run with me going to clinics or not going to clinics, and to become internationally recognized as quality, for having good quality and technique at the forefront of what we do. That to me really matters.
Cool. That's it.
Great, man.